Good day, welcome to class. This class is powered by Isaac Humanitarian Foundation. And of course today I'll be teaching you government and the topic is legitimacy. Once again, this class is sponsored by Isaac Humanitarian Foundation. Now, we've established the fact that government is a composite ingredient for states to exist. Now, government brings to life the will of the state. So it goes to say that for a state to exist as a state in itself, compulsory it must have the element of government. And this government can manifest in different forms. Yeah. It could be a monarchy, it could be a military, it could be a democratic government, it could be a parliamentary system. Of course, if you look at Nigeria, you know, during the course of our political history, we've had the military in government, all right, and we've also had a return to democracy. So basically, for a state to exist as a state, it must have a form of government. Now, government, like I said, can manifest in different forms. Now, what is the link between government and legitimacy? One word. The answer is acceptance. Now, if you look at the etymology of the word legitimacy, it comes from the Greek word legitimos, which means lawful or in accordance with the law. Now, etymologically speaking, legitimacy means lawful. And of course, in different climes, you will hear something like a legitimate government. So when you put lawful and government, what do you get? You get a lawful government. So by way of definition, legitimacy can simply be defined as the recognition and acceptance accorded to government by its people. I'll do that again. Legitimacy is the recognition and the acceptance given to a state's government by its people. So the moment the people of a state, the moment the people of a particular geographical entity, by the time they perceive as accepted, the government over them, that government can be said to be what? Can be said to be legitimate. So do not forget, by way of definition, under examination condition, if you are told to define legitimacy, say I told you, that it can simply be defined as the recognition and acceptance of a government by its people. Alright, now there are different ways by which government can be made legitimate. And this of course will take us to the subtopic, which is factors that determines legitimacy. I'll take that again. But then before I dwell basically on that, let me shed more light on legitimate government. You see, in the democracy, you agree with me that government is not a permanent feature. Government comes and goes by way of periodic election. Now, periodic election gives the people, you see, that political right to elect for themselves leaders that will manage their affairs in different elective offices that are present in government. So the moment majority of people within a state, the moment they aggregate their collective political rights and hand it over to a preferred candidate, the moment that candidate, by virtue of having the highest number of votes cast in an election, constitutes a government, then that government can be said to be a legitimate government. So basically, legitimacy is simply the people transferring their support through the ballot to elected office holders. So for instance, if in 2015, the people of Nigeria voted en masse for today's president, then his government can be said to be a legitimate one simply because it is riding on the collective goodwill and support of the people. But then, the same way a government can win legitimacy, a government can also lose legitimacy. Because there are certain indices that are responsible for a government becoming illegitimate. Say for instance, a government that is forced on the people may not be said to be a legitimate government because it is not riding on the collective support of the people. It's not riding on the majority support of the people. And let me quickly state this. You see, it has been argued in some clients that can a military government be legitimate? The answer to that question, like I tell my students, is yes. There are certain factors that can legitimize the military government, even if that government is not voted into office. Of course, you know that in the military, they do not have elections as well. They have powers being hijacked by force. or by other unconstitutional means. But then, when the government of a state, do not forget that the primary reason, I'll tell that again, the primary reason for the existence of governments is 1. Security. 2. Welfare. Governments all over the world must live up to its responsibility of security and welfare. Now, under security, we have 2 levels to it. We have what we call the external security and, of course, internal security. External, we talk about protecting the territorial space, protecting the boundaries of a state against external interference or attack. Alright, now when you were taught the state, you were told that one element which a state must possess is territory. Now, as far as territory goes, we have different levels or different domains of territory. And those domains include land, air, and sea. Alright, but some states do not have a sea domain, they are landlocked. But of course, every state must have at least land and airspace. Now, it is the responsibility of the government to ensure that the territories under its control, they are protected against external aggression. And of course, the people living within its territory must also be able to live freely without fear. Talking about the protection of lives and, of course, property. Secondly, welfare. Ladies and gentlemen, do not forget that one major reason for the existence of government is the provision of welfare packages. Of course, to ensure that the people under its authority live as humans, live under conditions that are necessary for growth and prosperity. And do not forget that when politicians contest and campaign during electioneering period, what they promise most times is simply a better welfare package, of course, among other things. So the moment a government, be it a military, be it a monarchy, be it a democratic government, the moment it can live up to its responsibilities of security and welfare, believe me, such a government at some point would be accorded legitimacy, meaning that the people would accept the authority of that government over them. Legitimacy is the recognition and acceptance of a government by its people, the right of rulers to rule, the right of rulers to rule. Now, having said that, let us look at factors that determine legitimacy. What are those indices that when you put them into play can legitimize a government? Number 1, legitimacy to periodic elections. Now, you see, it is common knowledge, all right? It is common knowledge. It is what everybody should know. Government is the life wire of a political entity. The moment you remove the element of government from a state, that state cannot be called a state in the sense of the word. All right? Now, in a democratic society, such as what we have in Nigeria, you see that per time government changes, and the factor responsible for the change of government periodically is called elections. Of course, you remember that democracy is simply the people governing themselves directly or indirectly through representatives periodically elected by them. And of course, in Nigeria, we practice an indirect democracy which makes use of periodic elections. This is the period where government changes according to the will of the people. Now, in every election, we have 2 types of people. We have the electorate, who are also referred to as voters, And we have the candidates, who are called flag bearers, representing a political party structure, of course, with the sole aim of winning an election and forming the government. According to Joseph Schumpeter, he said the first and foremost aim of every political party is to form the government and stay in it. Alright, so during the elections, we have political parties, okay, putting party members under a what we call tickets and canvassing for votes. Now, if a political party is able to secure massive support as against its candidates and wins the support of the people by way of having the highest number of votes cast, then such a political party will constitute the government. And what has played out in such a scenario is that they have the support of the people to form the government and manage their affairs. So, ladies and gentlemen, in a democracy, the first factor that determines legitimacy is legitimacy through periodic elections, where the people choose for themselves leaders that will manage their affairs in different elected offices in government. Number 2, economic policies. Now, it is important to note that economic policies is one factor that can accord legitimacy to any government. The moment the government of a state is able to formulate and implement economic policies that can bring about prosperity, economic policies that can bring about a better standard of living for its people, such a government is sure to win the support of its people. So economic policy is one major, and this is very critical as well, it's one major factor that can enhance, or better still, ensure a legitimacy for a government. Can ensure legitimacy for what? For government. Do you understand that? Now, say for instance, during the regime of General Sani Abacha, you would agree with me that Nigeria, experienced economic prosperity. Even though in some quarters Abacha was referred to as a pariah, but within the Nigerian space, the people of Nigeria enjoyed prosperity at some point. Alright, and I must say this. When Abacha died, some persons, were happy, some others were sad. I remember that, in my compound then as a child, my neighbors were not happy. Because I remember one of them saying Abacha brought about economic prosperity. Alright, as far as his government is concerned, it enjoyed a level of support, albeit from a minute set. Number 2, respect for customs and tradition. Now, it's important to note that Nigeria is a multi-ethnic state. Historically speaking, when the 1914 consolidation of the northern and southern protectorates and the colony of Lagos took place, what happened, what manifested, was simply the coming together of different ethnic extractions to now form a new political identity under a single umbrella. Speaking plainly, different ethnic groups were merged together and given a new identity. So many after 1960, we continue to experience in this country multi-ethnic tensions, ethnic tensions that are occasioned by one, a fear of the minority question, at the same time underlying issues that we have not been able to attend to as a state. But then, when a government respects the customs and traditions of its people, such a government is bound to enjoy legitimacy from them. Because in a country such as Nigeria, the average Nigerian, so to speak, sees himself first as, for instance, a Yoruba man before he sees himself as a Nigerian. The Igbo man sees himself first as an Igbo person before he calls himself a Nigerian. Same thing with the Hausas and the Fulanis. They see themselves first in their traditional identity before their national identity. And of course, government, if is to enjoy legitimacy, government must take note of these considerations in making policies, in making decisions, in appointments, and all of that. Otherwise, such a government is bound to suffer, rejection from its people. Another factor that can ensure legitimacy is foreign policy. Okay, so let me quickly explain this. You see, foreign policy, by way of definition, is simply the official statement. The official statement that governs the behavior of a state in its relationship with states and non-state actors in the international space. The code of conduct that governs how a state behaves in international politics is called foreign policy. And then if I want to go further, foreign policy has 4 tools of implementation. And those tools include diplomacy, which is achieving results through peaceful means; war, which of course is the flip side of diplomacy; economic sanctions; and of course propaganda. These 4 are what we refer to as the tools of foreign policy. They help a state in achieving its foreign policy objective. But then, the foreign policy of a state can determine its external legitimacy. I repeat that. The foreign policy of a state can determine how to be perceived from other states and of course its people in the diaspora. So please do not forget, foreign policy objective is equally important in the indices, that can guarantee the legitimacy of a state. Let's look at what I mentioned earlier: periodic elections. We have economic policies. We have customs and tradition. We have foreign policy objectives. So these are some of the factors that can ensure that a state enjoys legitimacy from its people. By way of a brief recap, legitimacy comes from the Greek word legitimous, which means lawful or in accordance with the law. And by definition, it can simply be said to be the recognition and acceptance of a government by its people, the rights given to rulers to rule. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this class. Have a wonderful time. Bye.